and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show.
Don't touch that.
This is the #1 podcast for real estate investing, and each episode covers what you need to know to find and flip deals right now.
Wow!
Break free of the chains that are holding you back and join us on today's episode. Hey, what's going on? It's Jason Lucchese, and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I have a very special guest with us. Oh my goodness. 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is Jason Lucchese, and welcome back to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I have a good friend of mine on here today, Mr. Ryan Robeson. How are you doing, Ryan?
Having a good day. It's been a busy morning, but I'm glad we got this going, and we're off to the races here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're with Next Level Flipping. For those of you that are listening to this on iTunes, Ryan's got a really cool t-shirt on. I like that t-shirt. That's a cool logo that you got on there, man.
You know, I got to give Jamie Woolley the credit. I came up with the logo, and she didn't like it, and I really, really liked it. And then she said, let me do one better. So shout out to Jamie for coming up with the cool logo.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. So for folks that don't know about you, why don't we share a little bit about Ryan? What's your background in real estate, and what are you doing today, man?
Oh man, it's been a ride. I'm going on 10 years now flipping houses. And before that I was in hard money lending. And before that I was an accountant of all things, which is funny because the people that know me know that, like, I don't have an accounting mind, right? I'm a visionary. I love marketing. I love, that kind of stuff. And most accountants aren't like that. But
yeah,
I remember sitting down with my dad at lunch, and he said, you're going to learn real estate in your life at some point. Go study accounting or finance. At some point you'll learn real estate. Don't worry, but the market will teach you. You can learn on your own. And it was good for me, because now I love spreadsheets. Like, I don't think I would have gained a love for spreadsheets if it wasn't for accounting. So yeah, I started flipping in 2009 was my very first flip.
And how'd you come across that?
So this is back in the days when loan mods were like the craze. Everybody was talking about loan modifications. And I had a business partner at the time who, I actually haven't told this story very often. I told it the other day, but I always leave this out when I tell my history. So you'll be the only podcast with this part of the story on there.
Sweet.
I'm working with this hard money lender, right? And somehow or another, I get a hold of this guy out of Texas. I got to find the emails and go back and find the history on here. It's a really fascinating story. And one of the large, medium-sized banks that went under, this guy said, hey, I own a bunch of their notes, and they've hired me to kind of broker these notes to people. And that's kind of a weird thing. Like, I don't know if you remember those days, but everybody talked about tapes. Tapes were like the big, buzzword around town. Everyone has a tape. And there was this whole daisy chain of people that were trying to resell these tapes, right?
Right.
And so this guy contacts me, and it's like this super cheap ghetto house in downtown Phoenix. And I bring it to my hard money lender guy that I was working for, and he's like, I don't have any interest in a dollar amount that big. And I'm like, hey, do you mind if I do it personally? He's like, sure. So I go meet with the seller, and I make a deal with a guy that apparently owns this note. And I agree to, I kind of refinance the note with the seller as kind of part of the package deal. And I bought this note for $11,000, had the seller deed the property over to me and pay me $600 a month in rent. Oh, wow. And that was kind of the start. I mean, my very first deal was a very creative, weird deal. Like, that's not a normal transaction, right?
Right.
So I did 2 more with those guys. I mean, to this day, I still don't know how I got the title comfortable with the fact that this random dude is the owner of these notes, and they underwrote it, and nobody's ever questioned that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, those are my first rentals. So I got into the rental game, and that was exciting. And I had a business partner that was just on this craze of loan modifications. And when I was actually just officing in his office for a little bit, and he had a whole board of loan mods he was doing, and people paid him $3,000 up front. I was like, man, have you thought about short sales instead? And we ended up going that route, and we did short sales instead of loan mods. And it just really, I think, and then we got into the auctions and, the natural transition of, we're doing 100 flips a year. How do we transition that into, now we got to market and find sellers on our own? And it was a really neat, I mean, we don't have all day, but that 10 years was a really neat ride. I think our first year we did 37 deals. Our second year we're in the 80s. And by year 3, we're doing 100 flips a year. And at one point, our business shut down because the auction stopped. We had to figure out how to send a postcard out and figure out how to do ringless voicemails. We had no clue what we were doing. We had done like 600 flips, but had never sent a postcard.
Right. So Ryan, that's first deal, very creative. Some of the things, and for all of us that have been doing this game for a while now, we all know that it's you have to follow along with the trends, and you have to be able to adapt to how the market is giving you feedback. And it's great. I'm glad that you brought that up because off air we were talking a little bit about some of the things that you see that's happening. I've had other guests comment on it before, and we'll get to that here at the end. So make sure you guys listen in. We're going to talk about something here with the market and what we're kind of seeing here. But I wanted to get to a lot of our subscribers are in that, I guess, I hate saying it, but they're in that newbie phase. So a lot of folks are in the point of maybe education. They're educating themselves, which is great. But what would you've got Next Level Flipping, and I know it's like an online mastermind, I believe, from what I've gathered.
Different word, right? It's a new buzzword out there.
Yeah, and it's great. I love it. I think it's great. I think it offers, I think the big thing is I've been in several masterminds over the years, and I don't always have the time to do the traveling, and I think that's a thing that you guys are bringing that not a lot of these other groups have, because, when you dump $25,000, $30,000 into these groups and, hey, you can't, make one of them, it's like, oh shoot, there went a few $1,000s of not going to the meeting. So I like you guys' approach.
And, you end up having kids and get married and you start going down that road and you just don't have the time anymore to travel 8 times a year to masterminds.
Yeah, exactly, man. And, I love that. And we could talk about that a little bit more here so people know more about Next Level and what it's all about. But the thing I wanted to ask you is for that person that's listening right now, and we're in obviously 2020, and they're wanting to get their first deal under contract so that they could either wholesale it, rehab it, or maybe it's a deal that they want to keep for their rental portfolio. What would you say to somebody? Because those first 2 years in business are your most important. What would you say to somebody right now that's kind of going through that phase right now, that they need to get their first deal? I know what I would say, but I want to ask you.
Yeah, no, I've got a few different that's a bullet pointed question. I mean, I've got paragraphs to go on there, and just some kind of high level bullet points to answer that. Be really careful with the gimmicky gurus out there. These guys that are talking, there's a guy out there pitching, he's doing like 10 to 20 subject to deals a month. I know the guy personally, he's a fraud. You just got to be really careful with these gurus that are pitching you and teaching you to come pay them to teach you. That's the first thing. You're going to throw a lot of money chasing after bad education and some of the things that just isn't working. So get that off the table for a second. Another thing that I hear a lot of people when they get started struggle with is most people want to become a passive investor, have passive income coming in from rentals at some point. I don't think rentals are fully passive, by the way, but let's just call it that passive income bucket for a second.
Yeah.
But when you're getting started, that's not something you usually, unless you have a lot of money behind you, which some people do. There's a guy in Houston I'm friends with who he's in the oil industry, makes $500,000 a year in salary, and has extra time to do real estate. He's got the cash to start being a passive real estate investor and getting rental income day one. A lot of people don't, right? And he's at the same point. He's like, how do I do my first deal? But he's got a bunch of cash behind him. Right. So determine, if we're just going to talk about wholesaling and flipping, determine what you like the most. And this is where you want to say, hey, do I enjoy the design? Do I enjoy fixing a property up and managing a process? Am I a project manager type personality? Because you're going to be doing a lot of that. If you enjoy that side of it, do flipping. If you enjoy the transactional side and the marketing and the sales, you should be in the wholesale business. Because the wholesale business is very transactional. You're a marketing company and a sales company at the end of the day. All you're doing is marketing for sellers, selling sellers to have you buy their house, and then going and selling buyers to buy from you.
Right.
So if you're really good at that and you have any experience as a real estate agent or other industries, real estate agents are just wholesalers, really, right? They sell sellers to let them sell their house for them, and they find a buyer and they negotiate. But if you enjoy that fixing it up, flipping is good. Now, most people at the beginning do a little bit of both. because flipping is so capital intensive. And you've got to do what I call OPM, right? Other people's money. You got to go out and raise money when you're flipping. So hopefully, maybe that could steer our conversation. I've got a lot to talk about, and I don't know which way you want to go with your show, but I think kind of finding that fork in the road of what your personality fits best is really important at the beginning.
Yeah, and I guess we could talk about this right now, right? With what's going on in the market. We did a State of the Union not too long ago with our podcast, and we were talking about the market. And we had a really good guest on a couple days ago, Rob Swanson, and he's a really, really smart guy. He's been around for 20 plus years in the real estate business. And we've all seen the different cycles over the years. You had the one in the early to mid 70s, the one in the early 90s, the one obviously in 08, 09. And now it's kind of like we're on a delay right now. Like we should have probably had a correction already in the market, but I think because of the economy with the way it is right now, and say what you want, with people listening right now with the current, president that we have in there, I do believe if we were to shift and go a totally different route, we might be in a position to where that correction might come sooner. Now, what are your thoughts on, and we don't need to get all political here, but what's your take on, the market right now? Because that would dictate what somebody would go into as far as, should I do rehabs right now? Should I do wholesales right now?
Unfortunately, my crystal ball got smashed to pieces in 2008, and I haven't been able to put it back together since. I thought I had one before 2008, but 2008 crushed it. So, every 4-year election, there's elections every 2 years, right? But every presidential election, things tend to slow down right before the presidential election. That's a great time to buy. Like when things are slowing down, and guys like you and me that have been in it for a while and have cash and don't want to lose our cash, start to pull out a little bit, or kind of like, hey, let me make sure I don't lose everything. It's really good. It's actually smart for these people listening to your show. They're getting started to get in there and get some deals. And excuse me, that's going to happen. I've heard it say, some really big hedge fund guys that I've been associated with, I've heard them say kind of over coffee, we don't care who gets elected. Every time a presidential election comes up, we really don't care. The reason why we slow down before an election is because we don't know what the rules are going to be. As long as you tell us the rules, we'll make money. It could be the most liberal Democrat or the most conservative Republican. As long as we know what the rules are, we'll make money. And I think the market is smart like that. The market tends to say, hey, we don't know what's going to happen in 401ks, the stock market. Let's just kind of hold off until after the election, and then we'll figure out what direction we're going to go. So that's my perspective on it. I mean, that's about as crystal ball as I have been able to put back together since I got hit in 2008.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a really good take because, so many people lay their, success and what is happening to them personally off of what the government and politics are doing. And I've never really cared with what's going on, because if you really want to make money in this country, you could make money. There are going to be different changes that happen. Obviously, when I first got in, it was short sales, and then I had to shift because short sales were no longer, the deal. You just had to change it up a little bit. So let's talk about, what you're currently doing right now in your business.
So we talked about other people's money.
Yeah.
And another kind of fun catchphrase out there is OPR. Have you heard of that?
Other people's rentals?
Other people's resources.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm big on that. That's kind of been my big transition in 2018. I exited a partnership that I was in partners with this guy for 8 years with, and kind of went on my own in 2018. And before that, we had kind of separated in a lot of ways, but we were partners on a few things. And 2018 was kind of a hard cutoff for both of us on everything. And that was, we're still friends, everything was good. And that's a whole show on how to exit a partnership and what that looks like. But, it was scary. And I worked really hard in 2018 and got back to where I made more money alone than I did with him together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And 2019, it was 9 years in, and I don't, I know everybody wants to talk about grinding and working your butt off. And I just said, I'm going to hire a COO and I'm going to travel 120 days this year. And that was my big thing last year. Like I traveled the world with my family. Like we brought our kids along to most of it. We went all over the world and just, almost half of the year we were gone. And you know what's crazy? I made 650,000 in flipping here in Arizona in 18. And then we bumped that up to $1 million net in 19 with me gone 120 days. It's just nuts that I was able to pull myself out of the business like everyone talks about you're supposed to do in this business, right? But nobody really does. And made more money, almost twice as much. And a lot of that's other people's resources, is learning how to delegate. If you want to read a really good book, Clockwork is chapter 2 and chapter 5 of Clockwork, talk about how to delegate. And it's hiring the right person for the right seat, which you hear all the time. I'm not the first person on your program to say this, but this is really important, this next step, for the right amount of money. And we tend to, in fact, I have a business partner that was like, I'm hiring a VA and here's a list of 30 things I'm gonna have them do. And I was like, dude, they don't make enough money to justify these 20 things. Like that education level of a VA can't do those 20 things.
Right.
And I'm not saying VAs are bad. They're good in a lot of ways, but the right amount of money is, don't be afraid to spend that extra $5,000 or $10,000 a year for that person if they're the right person. Because one really good person is the same as 3 decent people.
So Ryan, I really like that you shared that you went and traveled for 120 days. That's awesome. And the main reason why I think that's so awesome is so many people, they get into this business to do what? They want to escape having to ever work for somebody ever again. They want the freedom. But what happens when they get into the business is they've essentially created a job times 2. They're working their butts off. They might not see the results that they want in their business. And they came around and they wanted the freedom.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. When you decided to do this, and I think it's remarkable that you did that, and I'm sure it's probably something that you and your family are going to continue to do. What was the biggest fear that you had when you were like, okay, I'm starting this thing. We're going to go and we're going to go do our first part of traveling. And what was your biggest fear with it that you felt like I just have to let go?
So I transitioned my business model to going from 100 flips a year down to about 40 or 50. Like I really try to pull back.
Yep.
In 18, I said, I'm going to be the very best salesperson possible. And then in 19, when I hired the COO, I'm going to hire a COO that also is really, really good at sales. So my biggest fear was, he started February 2019. So I committed to this 120 days prior to ever doing it. And I think that's a big part of it, Jason. And I got so many ideas flowing through my head here is you just got to make the jump and do stuff sometimes, right? It forces you to put other things in place.
Oh, yeah.
Me being gone forced me to put things in place. So to answer your question, my biggest fear was we only bought 2 to 3 houses a month, which isn't a big volume deal at all. But for us to kind of make that $1 million net a year, we had to buy super deep and be very, very disciplined to saying no to deals that in the past we would do to keep our guys busy or to, hey, it's 30 grand, let's buy it. Why do we care if it's a little past our rental rate, or our rate of return requirement? And I just said, guys, instead of at 80%, which we used to be, we need to be at 75%. And I cut another 5% margin on gross revenue that we needed to buy into. And that 5% difference is an extra 400 or 500 grand to your bottom line. It's drastic. That little difference on every deal adds up a lot.
No, I would agree. So from a virtual standpoint, you were able to manage your business from wherever. Because I know it's possible, because I know when my wife and I went to Bora Bora and we were on those little huts, I was still able to get internet. And we were gone for, it wasn't obviously 120 days, but we were gone for a solid 2 weeks. And just being off in those huts, if I needed to jump on for 20 minutes or so, I was able to get internet connection. So I know if you could get an internet connection, not necessarily you need a cell phone or anything like that, because we're doing a Zoom call right now. You could do Zoom calls with whomever you want. But it's basically you're saying it's possible from wherever you want, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are obviously a lot of guys that have done this, but there are very few guys out there in the education space that are currently flipping, one, have ever flipped, two, and three, are living that life that they can truly have the freedom. And a big difference for me is I implemented daily huddles. So every morning my team has their KPIs ready and their roadblocks ready. So I jump on a call, and my wife knows this. When I'm out of town, often as much as I'm available to, I jump on a daily huddle for 30 minutes. And she knows that if she gives me that 30 minutes while I'm out of town, I'm not going to be blown up through the rest of the day with all my employees asking me questions about things. So they know to get all their questions in for me during that 8 to 8:30 time frame. And once that daily huddle's done, talk to me tomorrow if you have more issues. And we stay really organized, and we don't allow kind of that vampire time issue where people are sucking time away from me all day long. Yeah. And I really want to, this is a thought I actually had. I didn't know what we were going to talk about today. And a thought I had this morning that I think is kind of serendipitous. I was coaching a friend of mine in another state, and we had a call, and I don't do coaching, by the way. Let me just put that out there. But I'm helping a friend out, and I said, hey, we got this call scheduled. Where are you? And he texts me. He's like, oh, I'm turning the utilities on for this property. Now, he's flipping like 40 houses a year. He's not like a newbie.
Right.
And the thought went through my head, like, I don't even think I would know how to turn utilities on in one of my houses. I haven't done that in 8 years. Like, that was my text back to him. Like, dude, I haven't turned utilities on in a house in 8 years. Why are you turning utilities on? Like, you have an executive assistant, you have a team. Like, what are you doing? Right. And I think we as owners get so caught up in these little tasks that we feel like, well, there's an issue with the utilities, and well, I'm the one that has to solve all the problems. And you got to get your mindset out of that. Like, stop being the only one that can solve problems.
I agree, man. And with you having the business that you have, you obviously got to a point to where you felt like, hey, I've got my COO in place. I've got my team in place. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to do it. Even if it gets me out of my comfort zone, I'm going to make it happen. What does your team look like right now? Like, as far as, who do you have on your team? How many team members do you have? Because you're, 7 figures, obviously, can't just be done with a COO. So you probably have.
A COO is really do you know Gabe Garcia by chance?
I do not.
He does 200 or 300 deals out in Florida. He's a good guy, but awesome guy. Anyway, I remember him and I were at dinner, and he's like, everyone, Gary Harper, these different guys, everyone's talking about COO, Jason Medley, like the COO is the new thing. Yeah. It's really the wrong word, to be honest with you. Our businesses just aren't big enough for a true COO. Very few businesses are, right? There are guys out there that are running, 200 or 300 deal shops that maybe can have that position. But for me, I called him a COO, but what he really was he was a sales manager, acquisition manager. Okay. And he actually won on appointments. So he was kind of an acquisitions manager and kind of managed a sales guy, basically. Gotcha. And then he also helped manage some of the construction. So he wasn't over all the departments. Like, he just didn't have the capacity to do marketing and, all the rest, transaction coordinating, financing. You have to have a pretty big organization, because a true COO is up here, and then you've got these middle-level managers and then the staff. I mean, how many people do you know, Andy McFarland, maybe one of them, how many people do you know that have that level of organization, right?
Not many.
And I don't either. And I'm all about 2 to 3 deals a month, super deep. Like, I study Sandler, John Martinez, like, you name it, I'm studying it on how to be a better salesperson. Yeah. Because when I buy deeper, that's less deals I need to do, which is less people I need to hire to help manage those deals. So I've got a full-time construction crew, and I only flip. I don't wholesale. I love the design side of things. If you follow me, you'll see some of I've gotten even into the higher end projects, which is just fun because you get to do more stuff with design. I've got an executive assistant that acts as a transaction coordinator, and she does a lot of my accounting and kind of paperwork stuff that needs to get done. I've got the sales manager that goes on appointments and buys houses, and I've got one girl in the office that orders material for all our flips. We are super small. Nice. Just lean and mean, and we buy deep and make money.
No, that's awesome, man. That's really cool, and I'm thankful for you sharing that. And you brought up sales. Here's where we've been seeing a lot of folks that are listening to us right now. Or even, these are folks that maybe have been doing deals, but maybe their struggle is something like talking face to face or over the phone with getting deals the way that you do. Do you have any sales tips? Like, you don't have to give us a whole bunch, but maybe like one or two nuggets that you would give when talking to somebody, either face to face or over the phone, to try and get the deal to where you ultimately need it in order for it to make sense for you on the bottom line.
So I'm buying a company right now, and I'm hiring a COO type to come in and run the company after I buy it. And I was introducing him to the current owner of that company. So the seller essentially, right?
Yeah.
And he like brought in this PowerPoint presentation. He sits down and like, about 30 seconds of, hey, how are you? My name's this, what's your name, kind of thing. Let's meet each other. And then he like dives in this PowerPoint presentation for like 30 minutes. Like I almost fell asleep. And it just reminded me, like, I mean, I'm a little bit, I don't know the right word, abrasive sometimes. And I mean, at the end of it, I was like, all right, well, now that that's done, let's get to know each other. And it was just kind of like, he kind of looked at me like, well, that's what my PowerPoint presentation was. It was all about me, and how great I am. And I think we get into these like scripts with cold calling, and I hate like cold callers in the Philippines and these places, like such a horrible idea. And I know somebody out there is having success with it, so I apologize. But the problem is you give people scripts. And have you ever answered the phone and somebody calls you with a script from the Philippines? Like you just hang up. Like unless you're in dire need and your house being foreclosed on tomorrow, you just hang up. Exactly. You're losing out on deals that way. My point is 80% of your conversation at that seller's house should be building rapport. They're going to sell the house to you because they like you better. And they're confident in you. They know you can close. Like all of that's part of rapport. And I can really dive into what rapport means. It's not just talking baseball for 80% of the time. It's their situation. It's pulling the pain out. All of that is building rapport. Getting somebody comfortable enough to cry with you is a huge deal. Like if you can get to that point where a seller cries, shit, if you cry, like that's rapport. Like that's empathy. That's rapport. And I don't want to focus too much on empathy because truly, it's interesting. Sales isn't necessarily an emotional process. Sandler is very famous for saying, if you become friends with someone, you won't have the ability to truly sell. And what he means by that, let me put it in terms, and he's in a normal industry where you're selling something. What he's saying is if you really become friends with someone, you're going to feel bad buying that house at a big discount.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a game of like, I want you to go out there and be best friends with people. It's helping people feel understood, helping people feel valued. It's exactly what you probably should be doing with your spouse. If you're good at that, just transition that stuff over to sellers, getting to know their situation, helping them feel like you care, and you should care, and why selling their house to you is in their best interest.
I like that because we're all about that too. Try and find out exactly what their problems are, and you need to become a problem solver. It's not all about the benefits that you could pitch to somebody because those benefits might not even mean anything to the seller. So I like that. You really got to get in, dig deep with them, and really try and find out what that pain is. And you got to just pull it out by having conversations with people and not talk all about yourself. So I really like that. And we're getting to the end of the show here, and I normally ask, our individuals that we have come on, our professionals, what kind of books they like to read. And I know you just mentioned Clockwork not too long ago, but if you could just mention off maybe two more, if you could, like some really good business books, motivational books, inspirational books, anything that's really kind of meant something powerful to you.
So I would look up any book written by Sandler. John Martinez is a big name in our industry, but a lot of the stuff he teaches is based off Sandler. And he kind of puts his own twist to it, which is great. John's an amazing guy, and you should pay for his education. Sandler's got some really good building blocks to look off of too, and he kind of has his own sales training if you want sales. I'm reading a book on .com secrets right now that is all about funnels.
Yep.
And I think that's something in our industry that nobody's figured out yet, how to truly funnel a seller on a quick funnels page. So I'm really, really intrigued by that. Yeah, those are the two that I'm excited about right now. I mean, there's a lot of books that I love, but
That's
there's books
awesome.
that I read over and over again, but I really like those two books.
And do you like to read the book, listen to the book, or maybe even both?
It's interesting. Dot-com Secrets, I need to read it. So like Scaling Up, for example, I love that book, but that's it. You have to read it. You can't listen to it. There are certain books like Traction or Scaling Up that will help you be a better operator of your business that, I mean, you need to it's like a book you have in school that you like study and take
Yeah.
notes. And
Yeah.
like, I had that thought the other day, like I'm basically going to school again. And I wish they had like a test at the end of it, kind of a thing. So it forced me to like actually do it on a certain time. And there
Yeah.
are other good books that are great for listening to, but the ones with the diagrams and the pictures, like they're pretty intense and you usually need to read those.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. So, Ryan, for folks that want to find out a little bit more about you, maybe connect with you, I know you said you're on Facebook, and we'll share that link with folks. But is there another way that individuals can reach out to you?
Nextlevelflipping.com is a good website to kind of find out more information about us and what we do. And I know you brought up that online mastermind. We have two groups. We have the higher level group, which is for people doing 26 plus deals a year, and the lower level group for people doing, that 5 to 25. And it's a great online community where we're doing Zoom calls and teaching and helping and sharing of ideas. And I mean, honestly, it's $100 a month for that Rising Stars group. It's a no brainer. I mean, it's just so affordable to be able to be a part of something like that. And RJ Bates runs that group. If you know RJ, he's a freaking stud in this industry. Jamie Woolley runs the higher level group. And I mean, we've got guys in there that are doing 1,000 deals a year. We've got guys in there doing 50 to 100. And it's kind of fun. I mean, we did a call with Phil Green the other day, and the whole call was about how he does 200 deals a year just with networking with realtors. Like, how cool is that? Wouldn't you love to know how he networks with realtors to do 200 deals a year? People are just bringing in him deals all day long. He's not having to go to seller appointments, none of
that. I like that. That's awesome. Those are some really cool nuggets. So nextlevelflipping.com, you can go check that out. And we'll have Ryan's link if you want to go follow him on Facebook as well. Ryan, do you have any parting words for our folks?
No, man, this has been great. I've enjoyed the time, and it's good getting to know you. It looks like you're a Cavaliers fan back there, huh?
My wife got that for me as a gift. I actually grew up in Northwest Chicagoland suburbs, and I'm a big Jordan fan. So I've got to get another one. I've got a Jordan signed ball over there, and she thought I'd like the LeBron jersey. I do. I think he's a great ball player. But the next couple of jerseys, I'd like to get Kobe. Of
course,
I wanted to get Kobe even before he unfortunately passed. I want to get Jordan as well, but those two would be a great addition to the office.
Well, it's good seeing you, man, and thanks for taking the time to spend time today, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ryan. And for folks out there that have any questions, you could go to support@jasonluchesi.com. That's support@JasonLuchesi.com. And don't forget, go ahead and purchase a copy of Flipping Out Over Probates. It's on Amazon right now, flippingoutOverprobates.com. And we reveal not just probates. A lot of people miss out on this. It's not just probates. There's also trusts. There's also deals to where you can work directly with senior living communities to get amazing deals. So go to flippingoutoverprobates.com. All of the money, all of the profits go towards charities. One of them is RJ Bates's Beat Kids Cancer. And the other one here is a local one for us in Indiana, Veterans Best Friend Indiana. But other than that, thanks for joining us on today's show. Thanks again, Ryan, for being a guest. Have a great day. Take care. Bye now.